Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the center of the great chamber aboard Galactic Council Station. The massive room stretched out before him like a giant dome. 12 alien species sat in their raised seats, looking down at him. Each species looked different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking trees. But they all had one thing in common today. They all stared at Jake with cold, unfriendly eyes. Jake had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years. He thought he understood these aliens. He thought they respected humans. He was wrong. The chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of the space station's engines. Jake could feel his heart beating fast in his chest. Something was very wrong here. The emergency meeting had been called just 6 hours ago. No one would tell him why. Counselor Vexithara of the Zelani Collective rose from her seat. She was tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. Her forearms moved as she spoke, and her voice echoed through the room. "Ambassador Morrison," she said, her words cold as ice. "You stand accused of crimes against the Galactic Council and all peaceful species in this galaxy." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "What crimes? I don't understand." Vexithara pressed a button on her control panel. A large screen appeared in the air above Jake's head. Images began to play. They showed human ships that Jake had never seen before. The ships looked dangerous and carried weapons that seemed very advanced. The images showed these ships attacking peaceful alien colonies. These are human vessels conducting illegal weapons, tests, and preparing for war against Council worlds, Vexithara announced. "Our intelligence services have proof that Earth has been building a secret war fleet for the past 10 years. Jake stared at the images in shock. "These aren't our ships. I've never seen these designs before. This has to be fake." "Are you calling the Council liars?" asked Counselor Mordak of the Krillian Empire. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. His gray skin looked like stone, and his red eyes glowed with anger. "I'm saying there must be a mistake," Jake replied, trying to stay calm. "Earth has followed every treaty. We've shared our technology openly. We've helped build the trade routes between your worlds. Why would we plan attacks?" "Because humans are violent by nature," said Counselor Thex from the Botanical Alliance. His voice was like wind through leaves. "Your species has a history of war. You fight each other constantly on your homeworld." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. "That's our past. We've grown beyond that. The United Earth government has kept peace on our world for over 50 years. We came to space seeking friendship, not war. Yet you expand. Too quickly," said another counselor. "In just 200 years since first contact, humans have spread to over 30 star systems. You build colonies faster than any species in our history. We explore and build because that's who we are," Jake said. "But we've never attacked anyone. We've never broken any laws or treaties." Vexithara's forearms moved in what Jake knew was a gesture of dismissal. "The evidence is clear. These weapons tests prove that humanity plans to attack Council worlds. Your rapid expansion shows you want to take our territory." "Then let me call Earth," Jake said desperately. "Let me speak to President Carter. She can explain everything. There has to be a mistake." "There is no mistake," Mordak said, his stone face showing no emotion. "The Council has voted. You are found guilty of preparing acts of war against peaceful species." Jake felt the world spinning around him. "Guilty? You haven't even let me defend myself. You haven't contacted Earth. This isn't a trial. This is a trap." "The sentence is death," Vexithara announced. "You will be executed as a war criminal. Your execution will be broadcast to all Council worlds as a warning to other species who might think about attacking us." Jake's mind raced. He realized the horrible truth. The aliens weren't afraid of human weapons or expansion. They were afraid of human success. In just 2 centuries, humans had gone from a single world to a growing interstellar civilization. Other species had taken thousands of years to do the same thing. The aliens weren't judging humans for crimes they had committed. They were punishing humans for becoming too successful too quickly. "You're making a terrible mistake," Jake said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Earth doesn't want war. But if you do this, if you execute me for crimes I didn't commit, you'll create the very enemy you're afraid of. Humans are already our enemy, Thex said. We're just admitting it now. 2 robot guards moved toward Jake. Their metal bodies gleamed under the chamber lights. Jake didn't try to run. There was nowhere to go on the space station. As the guards grabbed his arms, Jake looked up at the 12 alien counselors. You think you know humans, he said. You think we're just another species you can push around, but you're wrong. You have no idea what you're unleashing. The robots dragged him toward the execution chamber. Behind him, he could hear the counselors talking among themselves, satisfied that they had solved their human problem. Jake Morrison, career diplomat and father of 2, was executed 30 minutes later. The execution was broadcast across the galaxy just as the council had promised. They wanted every species to see what happened to those who threatened the peace. But they made one crucial error. They also broadcast the execution to Earth. In the White House Situation Room, President Lisa Carter watched her friend and ambassador die. Around the table sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the newly formed Interstellar Defense Council. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of computers and the soft breathing of 20 people trying to control their anger. When the broadcast ended, General Frank Hayes was the first to speak. His gray hair and weathered face showed his 40 years of military service. Madam President, he said quietly, I recommend we initiate Protocol Omega. President Carter stared at the dark screen for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but filled with cold determination. The Galactic Council has just declared war on humanity by executing our lawful representative under false charges, she said. As of this moment, Earth is no longer bound by any galactic treaties or conventions of war. She turned to look at each person around the table. General Hayes, you have my authorization. Begin extermination protocol immediately. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had been preparing for this day since first contact. They were about to discover what happened when you pushed humanity too far. 3 hours after Jake Morrison's execution, deep underground facilities across Earth began to wake up. These places had been hidden for decades, built in secret while Earth made peaceful contact with alien civilizations. The aliens thought they knew everything about human technology. They were wrong. Dr. Amanda Price walked through the main corridor of Project Lazarus, located 2 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. She had been waiting for this day for 20 years. Her team of scientists had worked in complete secrecy, developing weapons and technologies that would make the Galactic Council's fleets look like toys. Amanda's tablet showed green lights appearing across the world map. Similar facilities under the Sahara Desert, beneath the Antarctic ice and inside hollow mountains were all coming online. On the moon, hidden bases built inside fake mining operations were powering up their systems. On Mars, research stations that claimed to study geology were revealing their true purpose. Dr. Price called her assistant, Dr. Sam Cooper. All Lazarus sites are reporting ready status. The orbital platforms are also online. Amanda nodded. The orbital platforms were her favorite part of the project. For 50 years, Earth had been launching what appeared to be communication satellites and space telescopes. The aliens had watched these launches and saw nothing threatening. They never realized that each satellite contained enough firepower to destroy a city. What about the sleeper agents? Amanda asked. All networks are active, Sam replied. We have people in position on every council world and major space station. Amanda smiled coldly. The sleeper agent program had been her idea. For decades, humans had lived and worked among alien populations. The aliens thought these humans were scientists, traders, and diplomats seeking peaceful cooperation. The truth was very different. On the Zilani homeworld of Zephyr Prime, Dr. Kevin Walsh was putting on his normal work clothes in his small apartment. He had lived on this planet for 8 years, working as a respected xenobiologist studying alien plant life. His alien colleagues trusted him completely. They had no idea that his real job was to map their planetary defense systems. Kevin opened his closet and pulled out a small device hidden behind his winter clothes. The device looked like a simple data pad, but it contained a virus that would shut down Zephyr Prime's entire defense network. He had been waiting 8 years to use it. Meanwhile, on Earth's largest military base, General Frank Hayes was reviewing the files that only 12 people in the entire government knew existed. The files contained detailed invasion plans for every council world, complete with population numbers, military strength, and industrial capacity. The aliens had made a critical mistake when they studied humanity. They looked at Earth's public military and decided humans were not very dangerous. They saw Earth's small fleet of exploration ships and assumed that was all humanity had. They were wrong about everything. Captain Ben Rogers stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Vengeance, reading his sealed orders. The ship was hidden inside what appeared to be a large asteroid in the outer solar system. For 15 years, the Vengeance and 40 other warships had waited in the cold darkness of space. The orders were simple and terrifying. Rogers and his fleet were to visit every council world and eliminate all life. Not conquer, not occupy, but eliminate. The HFY aliens had executed one human under false charges. Humanity's response would be the complete destruction of every species that supported that decision. "Captain," said his first officer, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes, "the crew is asking about our mission." Rogers looked at the young woman who had served with him for 3 years. She was smart, brave, and completely loyal to Earth. But she had no idea what they were really going to do. "Tell them we're going to war," Rogers said. "Tell them we're going to make sure no alien species ever threatens humanity again." Back in the Colorado facility, Amanda was watching feeds from across the galaxy. Human agents on dozens of worlds were sending back final intelligence reports. Everything was going according to plan. "Doctor," said Sam Cooper, his voice excited. "The president is calling." Amanda walked to the secure communication room. President Carter's face appeared on the screen. The president looked older than she had that morning, as if the weight of what they were about to do had aged her in just a few hours. "Amanda," the president said, "are we really ready for this?" "More ready than they could possibly imagine," Amanda replied. "We've been building toward this moment since first contact. Every human colony, every trade mission, every scientific expedition has been gathering intelligence and positioning assets. The aliens think they executed one man to send a message," President Carter said. "They have no idea they just signed their own death warrants." Amanda nodded. "The Council species control approximately 400 worlds with a combined population of 800 billion. Our projections show we can eliminate organized resistance within 18 months. And our own losses? Minimal," Amanda said confidently. "We're not going to fight them on equal terms. We're going to fight them the way humans have always fought, when our survival was threatened. No rules, no mercy, no survivors." On the other side of the galaxy, Counselor Vexithera was enjoying a celebration dinner on Zephyr Prime. The execution had gone perfectly. The other council species were praising the Zilani for taking decisive action against the human threat. She had no idea that at that very moment, Dr. Kevin Walsh was uploading his virus into the Planetary Defense Network. She didn't know that. Captain Ben Rogers was already plotting a course for her homeworld. She couldn't imagine that hidden human agents were preparing to strike at every council world simultaneously. The Galactic Council had spent centuries believing that diplomacy and honor were the highest forms of civilization. They were about to learn that sometimes survival required becoming a monster. Humanity had tried to be good neighbors in the galaxy. They had followed the rules, respected alien cultures, and sought peaceful cooperation. But the aliens had misunderstood human nature completely. Humans were not naturally peaceful. Peace was a choice humans made when they felt safe. When that safety was threatened, when their people were killed under false charges, humans became something else entirely. The galaxy was about to meet humanity's true face, and that face was terrifying. 6 months after Jake Morrison's execution, the Zilani homeworld of Zephyr Prime was burning. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Retribution, watching the planet die below her. The blue and green world that had been home to 12 billion aliens was now nothing but fire and smoke. "Final kinetic strike confirmed, Admiral," reported her weapons officer, Commander Pete Jackson. No life signs detected on the surface. Susan nodded without emotion. The Zilani had been first to call for Jake's execution. They would be first to pay the price. Her fleet had not bothered with ship-to-ship combat. Instead, they had dropped massive metal rods from orbit at incredible speeds. The rods hit the planet like nuclear weapons, but without the radiation, clean, efficient, and absolutely deadly. Any word from their fleet? Susan asked. The Zilani, First Fleet surrendered 3 hours ago, Pete replied. They're requesting mercy for their civilian population. Susan's face remained cold. There are no civilians in this war. They all voted for the council that murdered our ambassador. Destroy their fleet. Across the galaxy, humanity's true war machine was revealing itself. The aliens had expected traditional space battles with honor and rules. Instead, they found humans who fought like the predators they had always been. On Council Station Alpha Prime, Councillor Mordek of the Krillian Empire was watching his empire collapse. His people had ruled their sector for 10,000 years, but human tactics were unlike anything in their military history. Humans didn't try to conquer planets. They simply destroyed them. Sir, said his aide, Captain Vorth, we've lost contact with 7 more colonies in the Outer Rim. Our scouts report finding nothing but asteroid fields where those worlds used to be. Mordek's stone face showed cracks of worry. How is this possible? Our intelligence said humans only had 50 warships. We were wrong about everything, Vorth admitted. They have hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, and their weapons technology is far beyond what we believed possible. Mordek stared at the tactical display showing red zones where his colonies used to exist. Get me a communication link to Earth. We need to discuss terms. Sir, we've been trying for weeks, Vorth said quietly. The humans aren't accepting any communications from Council species. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Miller was leading his Black Ops team through a Council research facility on the planet Nexus 7. The facility housed 3,000 alien scientists and their families. Ryan's mission was simple and horrible. Remember, no witnesses, Ryan told his 12-man team as they moved through the corridors. Intel says these scientists were working on anti-human weapons. We can't let that research survive. The team moved like shadows through the facility. They had trained for years for missions like this. Each man carried weapons that could cut through alien armor like paper. Their orders were clear. Eliminate everyone in the facility and destroy all research data. Dr. Yenth, the facility's lead scientist, was working late in his laboratory when the humans found him. The tall, thin alien looked up from his microscope as Ryan's team entered the room. Please, Dr. Yenth said in perfect English. I have children. We were only studying plant diseases. We never worked on weapons. Ryan checked his data pad. According to intelligence, Dr. Yenth had been developing biological weapons that could target human DNA. Your research files say otherwise. Those files are fake, the alien scientist pleaded. Someone must have planted them. We're peaceful, researchers. Ryan raised his weapon. He had learned not to trust alien lies. Maybe, but we can't take that chance. The facility was silent 20 minutes later. Ryan's team had done their job with cold efficiency. 3,000 aliens were dead and every computer had been destroyed. No research would survive to threaten humanity. On the bridge of the Council warship Eternal Glory, Captain Zethkul was beginning to understand the terrible truth. His ship was the pride of the Altarian fleet, equipped with the most advanced weapons the Council could build. But as he watched human ships destroy his escort vessels, he realized how badly the Council had misjudged their enemy. Captain, called his tactical officer. The human ships aren't even trying to board us. They're just staying out of range and firing those kinetic weapons. Zethkul watched another of his ships explode on the view screen. The humans fought like cowards, never getting close enough for honorable combat. They stayed far away and threw metal projectiles that moved so fast they couldn't be stopped. Sir, said his communications officer, I'm picking up human transmissions. They're not encrypted. Put it on speakers, Zethkul ordered. A human voice filled the bridge, cold and mechanical. Altarian vessel, You have 30 seconds to abandon ship before we destroy it. This is your only warning. Respond that we wish to discuss surrender. Terms, Zethkol commanded. The response came immediately. There are no surrender terms. You participated in the murder of Ambassador Morrison. The sentence is death. Zethkol realized with growing horror that the humans hadn't been caught off guard by Jake's execution. They had been waiting for it. Every human diplomatic mission, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange had been preparation for this moment. They were never seeking peace, he whispered. They were studying us, learning our weaknesses, positioning their forces. The human ships opened fire. The eternal glory, pride of the Altarian fleet for 2 centuries, was destroyed in less than 10 seconds. Back on Earth, President Carter was receiving daily reports from the various war fronts. The aliens were being crushed so completely that some human commanders were asking if they should slow down the advance. Madam President, said General Hayes, our forces are ahead of schedule on all fronts. Some of our allies are expressing concern about the speed of our campaign. Carter looked at the star map showing the expanding zone of human control. Red markers showed where alien worlds used to be. What kind of concerns? They're worried we might be too thorough, Hayes admitted. Some think we should accept surrenders and establish protectorates instead of total elimination. Carter's face hardened. General, those aliens executed our ambassador under false charges and broadcast it across the galaxy as entertainment. They wanted to make an example of humanity. We're simply returning the favor. Yes, ma'am, Hayes replied. What are your orders regarding surrender requests? The same as before, Carter said without hesitation. No quarter given, no prisoners taken. Every species that supported the Council's decision will face the same fate as their leaders. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about humanity. For centuries, humans had tried to fit in with galactic civilization. They had followed the rules, respected alien customs, and sought peaceful cooperation. But underneath that civilized surface had always been the same species that had conquered Earth through violence and determination. The aliens had mistaken human diplomacy for weakness. They were paying for that mistake with their lives. 2 years had passed since Jake Morrison's execution. Half the Council species were now extinct. The galaxy watched in terror as humanity showed why Earth had always been called a death world. What the aliens had thought was a civilized species turned out to be the most dangerous predator the galaxy had ever seen. President Lisa Carter sat in her mobile command center aboard the Earth defense ship Washington. She no longer governed from the White House. This was total war, and she needed to be close to the action. Her face had grown harder over the past 2 years. The weight of ordering the extinction of entire species had changed her. Madam President, said her aide, Colonel Mike Stevens, we're receiving surrender offers from the remaining Council worlds. They're offering to give up their entire fleets and submit to human rule. Carter looked at the tactical display showing the galaxy. Red zones marked where alien civilizations used to exist. Only 3 Council species remained alive, and they controlled less than 50 worlds combined. What's our standard response to surrender offers? Carter asked. The same as always, ma'am, Stevens replied. We tell them that they executed our ambassador under false charges. There is no surrender in this war. Carter nodded. The decision had been made 2 years ago. Every species that voted for Jake's death would face extinction. No exceptions, no mercy, no survivors. Commander Paul Johnson was leading the siege of Rigel Station, the last major Council stronghold. The massive space station had been the Council's military headquarters for over 1,000 years. Now it was trapped, surrounded by 50 human warships. Commander, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Blake, the station is transmitting on all frequencies they want to surrender. Paul looked at the ancient station through his view screen. He knew there were over 2 million aliens inside, including many civilians and children. 2 years ago, that knowledge might have bothered him. Now he felt nothing. Put their transmission on speakers, Paul ordered. An alien voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented English. Human Commander, this is Station Master Vexdal. We formally surrender all military assets and request mercy for our civilian population. We will accept any terms you offer. Paul activated his own transmitter. Station Master, this is Commander Johnson of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your species voted to execute our ambassador under false charges. There are no terms. There is no mercy. Prepare to die. Please, the alien voice begged. Our children had nothing to do with the Council's decision. Surely you can show compassion for innocent lives. Paul's face remained cold. Your children will grow up to be our enemies. We won't make that mistake. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin bombardment. I want that station reduced to space dust in 30 minutes. On the Council homeworld of Thexnara, the last surviving Elder was recording a final message. Elder, Quintal had been the one to cast the deciding vote for Jake Morrison's execution. Now he sat in his ancient palace, watching human ships fill the sky outside his window. To whoever finds this message, he spoke into his recorder. My name is Quintal of the Botanical Alliance. 2 years ago, I voted to execute the human ambassador Jake Morrison. I believed we were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. I was wrong. He paused, watching explosions light up the sky as his world's defenses crumbled. The humans were never the threat we thought they were. We were the threat. We feared their success, their rapid expansion, their different way of thinking, so we manufactured evidence and murdered their representative. The palace shook as human kinetic weapons struck the capital city. Quintal could hear his people screaming in the distance. I want the galaxy to know the truth, he continued. The humans never planned to attack us. They came in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation. We destroyed that peace because we were afraid of losing our power. Another explosion closer. This time, Quintal's recording equipment began to spark and smoke. We thought executing one human would send a message. Instead, we awakened a sleeping monster. The humans are not cruel by nature, but we made them cruel. We turned Earth's diplomats into Earth's executioners. The transmission cut off as human forces reached the palace. Quintal's final message was never received. Human jamming made sure no communications escaped the dying world. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in a secure laboratory on Luna, studying genetic samples from extinct Council species. Her job was not to preserve these species for future resurrection. Her job was to make sure they could never evolve again, even if hidden populations survived somewhere in the galaxy. Doctor, said her assistant, Dr. Carl Murphy, we've completed the genetic analysis of the Krillian Empire samples. Their DNA structure is fully mapped. Helen nodded, adding the data to her files. Good. Add it to the biological weapons database. If any Krillian colonies survived our attacks, we'll be ready for them. The biological weapons program was humanity's insurance policy. Even if some aliens survived in hidden colonies, they would face engineered diseases that targeted their specific DNA. No Council species would ever threaten humanity again. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Admiral Tony Garcia was preparing humanity's most terrible weapon. The atmospheric processors had been designed for terraforming new worlds for human colonization, but they could also be used in reverse, turning breathable atmospheres into poisonous wastelands. Admiral, said his science officer, Commander Lisa Park, the processors are ready for deployment on the last 3 Council homeworlds. Total atmospheric conversion will take 6 hours per planet. Garcia looked at the tactical display showing the final Council worlds. Millions of aliens lived on those planets, most of them civilians who had never voted for war. In the old days, that might have mattered. Now, it didn't. Begin atmospheric conversion, Garcia ordered. I want those worlds uninhabitable within 24 hours. The processors launched like seeds toward the doomed planets. They would land, burrow into the ground, and begin converting the atmosphere from life-giving air to toxic gas. Every living thing on those worlds would suffocate slowly over the next few days. Back on the Washington, President Carter received the final reports from her military commanders. The last Council resistance had been crushed. The last Council, worlds were dying. The war was almost over. Madam President, said General Hayes over the secure communication link, our forces report mission completion on all fronts. Total estimated alien casualties are 700 billion. Human losses remain minimal. Carter stared out at the stars through her command center window. 2 years ago, she had been a politician trying to maintain peace. Now she was the architect of the largest genocide in galactic history. Any signs of surviving Council forces? She asked. None, ma'am, Hayes replied. Our intelligence networks report no organized resistance anywhere in the galaxy. The Council species are extinct. Carter nodded slowly. Then it's time to address the other species. They need to understand the new rules. The galaxy's surviving. Alien species had watched the destruction of the Council in terrified silence. They now understood that humanity was not just another spacefaring race. Earth had produced the galaxy's apex predator, and that predator was now looking for its next meal. 5 years after Jake Morrison's execution, the last Council world fell silent. Admiral Tony Garcia watched from his command ship as the atmospheric processors finished their work on Altair Prime. The planet that had been home to 8 billion aliens was now a poisonous wasteland where nothing could live. Sir, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Mark Wilson, that's the last one. All Council worlds are now dead zones. Garcia nodded without emotion. Send the completion report to Earth. The Galactic Council is extinct. The news reached President Carter within hours. She stood in the rebuilt Council Station, now renamed Morrison Station in honor of the executed ambassador. The great chamber where Jake had died now served as the headquarters for humanity's new galactic government. Carter looked out at the representatives from the 43 surviving alien species. These were the races that had not been part of the Council. They had watched in terror as humanity destroyed 12 entire civilizations. Now they waited to learn their own fate. Fellow sapient beings, Carter began, her voice echoing through the chamber. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council executed our ambassador under false charges. They believed they could intimidate humanity into submission. They were wrong. The alien representatives sat in complete silence. Some were shaking with fear. Others stared at Carter with the hollow eyes of beings who had seen too much death. The old Council maintained peace through diplomacy and mutual respect. Carter continued. That system failed when they chose murder over justice. The new system will be different. She pressed a button, and holographic displays showed the galaxy as it existed now. Huge red zones marked where the Council species had lived. Green zones showed the expanding area of human control. Humanity now rules this galaxy, Carter announced. We maintain peace through superior firepower and the demonstrated willingness to use it. Any species that threatens human interests will face the same fate as the Council. Ambassador Kreltak of the Hegemony Worlds raised one of his 4 arms. He was old and had served as a diplomat for over 60 years. President Carter, surely there can be room for negotiation and compromise in this new order. Carter's eyes turned cold. Ambassador, your species signed a non-aggression pact with us 3 years ago. You have followed its terms perfectly. As long as you continue to do so, your people will prosper under human protection. And if we refuse, asked another alien representative, then you will join the Council species in extinction, Carter replied, without hesitation. The choice is yours. Captain Doug Peterson commanded the Earth Defense Ship Justice as it patrolled what had once been Council space. His ship was one of hundreds now scattered across the galaxy, making sure no threats to humanity could emerge. Captain, said his science officer, Lieutenant Nancy Adams, we're detecting some kind of transmission from the dead zone around Zephyr Prime. Doug frowned. Zephyr Prime had been the first world to die in humanity's war. Nothing should be alive there. What kind of transmission? It's very weak, Nancy replied. Possibly from a hidden bunker or underground facility. Doug thought for a moment. Intelligence had warned that some aliens might have survived in hidden shelters, waiting for humans to leave so they could rebuild. Set course for Zephyr Prime. We need to investigate. The Justice arrived at the dead world 6 hours later. The planet's surface was still scarred from the kinetic bombardment 5 years earlier. Nothing grew in the poisoned soil. The atmosphere remained toxic to all known life. Sir, said the communications officer, I'm picking up the transmission source. It's coming from underground about 2 miles below the surface. Doug studied the readings. How many life signs? Approximately 50, sir. They appear to be Zilani survivors. Doug felt no sympathy. The Zilani had been the loudest voices calling for Jake Morrison's execution. If some had survived, they were a threat that needed to be eliminated. Prepare a deep penetration missile, he ordered. Destroy the shelter. Sir, said his first officer, Commander Bill Foster. They might have children down there, innocents who had nothing to do with the war. Doug looked at the young officer. Commander, those children will grow up hating humanity for destroying their world. They'll spend their lives planning revenge. We can't allow that risk. The missile launched 15 minutes later. It burrowed deep into the planet's crust before detonating. The underground shelter and its 50 survivors were vaporized instantly. Doug made an entry in his mission log. All sectors secure. No signs of organized resistance. The galaxy remains at peace under human protection. On Earth, children attended school where they learned about Ambassador Jake Morrison as the man whose death had unleashed humanity's true potential. They studied the war not as a tragedy but as humanity's greatest triumph. 10-year-old Emma Collins raised her hand in her history class. Teacher, why did the aliens kill Ambassador Morrison if they knew we would destroy them? Her teacher, Mrs. Janet Price, smiled. They didn't know, Emma. The aliens thought humans were weak because we preferred peace. They learned too late that peace was a choice we made, not a weakness we suffered from. So we're the strongest species in the galaxy? Another student asked. Not just the strongest, Mrs. Price replied. We're the only species that matters now. The galaxy belongs to humanity because we were willing to do what needed to be done. The children nodded, absorbing the lesson. They were being raised to believe that human dominance was natural and right. They would never question why their species ruled through fear and violence. In the renovated Morrison Station, President Carter met with her military advisors for their weekly briefing. The war was over, but humanity's expansion continued. Madam President, said General Hayes, our colony ships have established settlements on 300 former Council worlds. Population is growing at record rates. Any resistance from local species? Carter asked. None significant, Hayes reported. Most alien populations surrender immediately when our ships arrive. Word of what happened to the Council has spread throughout the galaxy. Carter nodded with satisfaction. Good. What about our defensive preparations? Border systems are heavily fortified, Hayes continued. We've built automated defense platforms around every major trade route. If any hostile force tries to enter our territory, they'll be destroyed before they get within 10 light years of a human world. Carter looked at the star charts showing humanity's expanding empire. Green zones now covered nearly half the galaxy. The other half belonged to species that existed only because humanity allowed them to exist. The aliens made one crucial mistake. 5 years ago, Carter said to her advisors, they thought Jake Morrison was just a diplomat. They didn't realize he represented the most dangerous species in galactic history. Ma'am? Asked one of the younger officers. Humans, Lieutenant, Carter explained. We're not naturally peaceful. We're naturally violent. For 200 years, we tried to fit into galactic civilization by suppressing our true nature. The Council's mistake was forcing us to remember who we really are. The meeting ended, and Carter stood alone in the great chamber where it all began. A memorial plaque marked the spot where Jake Morrison had died. The inscription was simple. Ambassador Jake Morrison. His death awakened humanity. The galaxy was now humanity's. Other species existed only as servants, slaves, or resources to be exploited. The peace was maintained not through diplomacy or mutual respect, but through the absolute certainty that any challenge to human authority would result in complete extinction. Humanity had tried to be good neighbors. When that failed, they became the galaxy's apex predator. And apex predators never apologize for being what they were.